Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of All in the Name of Growth. I am really excited that you're here, but I'm super duper excited to have Megan Miller on today. She's our special guest, and I'm really excited to be able to jump into her story and to share some really amazing nuggets here. So Megan is actually an intentional living expert, which I love that. I think that it's so amazing to be able to classify what it is that you're doing and how you're showing up in the world. So Megan, welcome.
Christy, I am so happy to be here with you and see your beautiful smiling face. For those of you that aren't watching us on YouTube just yet, Christy, you have a beautiful, authentic smile. I can tell that you're just so happy doing this and building this, and it makes me happy to see and happy to be here.
You're right. I do love doing this, and I am happy that you are here. And that's why I have such a genuine smile today, because I'm excited about this conversation. So excited. So before we jump in, I want to do an icebreaker, which is just something that I do with all my guests, just to kind of like ease us in, before we get to the good stuff. So I have a couple of questions. What is your favorite book?
God, I love books. So, and I'm going to sidebar, total like ADHD. So bring me back, Christy, when you need me to. Interesting. I got off books for a long time because life got a hold of me. And it wasn't until I started reading books again over COVID that I started to have this feeling of returning home. And then it hit me. My favorite class in school was Mrs. Dobie's 8th grade creative writing class. And it was the first time in my life that I felt a part of something. And I think we all have that in class and when we're going through school, something that really feels like home, but then we lose that through our corporate grind and what the world tells us to do. And we will get there. But back to your question on my favorite book, there are so many. But a couple game changers for me has been, I'm a huge Mel Robbins fan. Have you heard of Mel Robbins?
Yes, absolutely.
From one Northeasterner to another, I just love the fact that she's real, she's raw, she's not trying to sell you something that she hasn't lived through. Yeah. 5-second rule changed my life.
5-second rule is really good.
And then the other one I just read, that your audience will love for all of us high achievers, hand raised. It's called The Gap to Gain by Dan Sullivan. And the basic foundation of it, Christy, is how we live our lives in gap mode. So you get the job you always thought you wanted, then you want the promotion. You get the house you always wanted, 3,000 square feet, then you want the 6,000 square foot house. You get the car you always wanted, then you want the luxury model. And how you're always climbing, hustling up this ladder of air quote success that never ends, because it's you versus you.
Yeah.
And you never take a time ever to look at the gains.
Yes. Oh, that sounds really good. I'm going to have to get that one.
I was like salivating over. I couldn't put it down.
Oh, it sounds so good. So many good nuggets to come out of it too. That's amazing. Okay. Chocolate or vanilla?
Oh, can I do twist? Is that breaking the rules?
Of course you can. Twist, absolutely.
Twist, as we talked about earlier. Hey, don't put me in a lane.
That's right. Don't put me in a box. Okay. What is your favorite destination?
Oh, anywhere I am with my husband.
I love that answer. People will sometimes ask the question, like, if you could go to dinner with anybody, in the past, living, dead, whatever, who would it be? My first answer is my husband.
Oh, I love that.
Like, I just love spending time with him. He is my best friend, genuinely, for 22 years. And we've we hit rock bottom. We've been there, we've done it, we've come back. So like, there's a sweetness there that it's deserved. And I think he's pretty great.
Oh, I love that. 22 years. What's one secret you can lay on us?
Pick your battles. You don't have to be right about everything. You don't have to die on every hill. It's all going to be okay.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. The thing that you do to relax.
So back to Mrs. Dobie's 8th grade writing class. 7 years ago, when I began this journey of bravely starting to get to know the woman I never took time to ever get to know myself, I didn't have a lot of language or a lot of toolkit to really understand how to even begin that journey. And I had all of these like gut feelings of just like so anxiety driven. But what really helped me navigate that course was writing, free writing, pen to paper, just letting it go, thoughts out of my head, releasing it. And I will say that every morning I spend at least 5 minutes pen to paper, freeing the thoughts from my head. And it's just been unknowingly to me when I began it, it's just been such a great learning process to get to know myself.
Yeah, that is great. I love that. I actually would highly recommend those who don't journal to do that. I think that it is very therapeutic and it helps us to be able to, and I like having a sounding board. I like being able to talk to people and, kind of get thoughts out that way. But there's something else about being able to let the thoughts out of your head without there being a potential judgment on the other side.
Yes, and I will tell your listeners, this is was interesting for me. I even found when it was just me writing to me, no one else was reading this, that I would hold back things because I
Yes.
would think to myself, I can't write that. That I don't want to write that. And I'm thinking to myself, why? This is me, for me, to me. No one needs to see this. So if you can't be honest with yourself, however could you be honest with anyone else? So that was really eye-opening for me. And then to your point on leveraging others, like while I always had a great network around me, I never leveraged them or let my mask down because I was fearful to not let people know I didn't have it all together. Because I didn't,
Yes.
right? But I didn't even know how to vocalize these things, Christy, because I didn't even have the language. And my whole life was spent stuffing things down.
Girl.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen. I seriously, this is why I'm so excited because I feel like I'm talking to another version of myself, really. Even your story, I mean, all of it. It just is like it so resonates. So I'm excited for this, and I love everything you just said. It's so applicable and true, and I have found that to be true in my own life, and I think that a lot of women actually will
Mm,
identify with that, being afraid to even write it down, to even
yes.
be real with yourself. And that, honestly, if you're afraid to write it down, you need to. There is a reason why, and you
And
have to be able to identify what that is, why it is, and overcome it. Otherwise, you are always going to be stuck in this process of, I can't, I can't, I can't. Nobody can know. I can't even allow myself to recognize it about myself. I'm going to act like it doesn't even exist.
yeah, that was me for many years. I'm going to act, it's fine. I'm fine. We're fine. And it never was. And
Yeah.
Chrissy, if I can go back to your point about even the power of writing it down, we are so quick, and I'm speaking for myself here, that we want the big thing, right? Like we think it's always the big thing, either quitting the job, ending the relationship, moving, dry January, cleansing, I'm only eating fruits and vegetables. Like we think it's all these big things, right? And when we're not doing these big, huge things, then we're air quote failing or we're not doing it right.
Not
When
progressing.
or progressing. And when you mentioned about the power of just writing it down and getting real with yourself, that's huge. That's huge. And that needs to be celebrated because it's all about the small steps. And once you get brave enough to really get real with yourself, then you have the power to change it.
It's true. It's true. I There is something about introspection, and I will say that this is true for myself. My biggest moments, my biggest gains, my biggest wins, my biggest like gigantic leaps forward in my life all happened when I got honest with myself and I was spending
Mm,
time with introspection, like, what does this look like for me? Why do I feel this way? Why did I act that way? How can I do better next time? Asking yourself those questions and wanting to learn and grow from those experiences and from people that you have, encountered, that is really the place where growth actually happens. And in my course, I talk about that The biggest moments of change are going to come in the quiet moments where you're journaling and having introspection and taking the time to get to know the true self and what you really want out of life.
Mm. And that's the things we're never taught.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
And that's why we're
here.
here, my friend, sharing our stories.
Thank you to the education system for failing in some ways so we could rise up and find our callings in life.
Yeah, here's to the journey.
Okay, fabulous. Let's jump in. So we've talked a little bit about some of Megan's viewpoints and things like that, but I really want to help we're going to like backtrack here for a minute and talk about how Megan even got to this point and kind of what her journey was. What I really want to talk today about, and the reason why I invited Megan to come on this show is I wanted to really get down to the nitty gritty of what it looks like to be addicted to achievement and always going after something. And like she said, never stopping to just be in the moment, to find the gratitude for where you're at, or to recognize you're no longer where you actually want to be. You've gotten so swept up in this current that is taking you down this river, only to find that the destination is not the one you wanted. Mm-hmm. So Megan, share just kind of a synopsis, a little quick recap of kind of your life and what brought you to this moment.
Yeah, boy, Christy, I was swept up in that river hard. And it's, I never even, well, actually, if I'm honest with myself, right back to our honesty point, I think I always knew that, but I hated silence because I hated the gut whispers. So I ran from that. But to tell you a bit of my story. So, and it's interesting how all this ties back into our childhood, but yet we never want to go there because it's uncomfortable. So my childhood, absentee father, single mother who by the age of 23 had 2 young kids that she had to care for single-handedly, hustled her whole life to keep a roof over our head, food on the table. We came from very humble beginnings. I was a chubby kid from central Pennsylvania who never really knew my worth in life. I had a speech impediment. I was a C student. No one ever really thought that I would amount to anything, myself included. So I came out into the world. I went through life as we all are, cultured to be the good student, the good daughter, the good employee. So I was whoever you wanted me to be. Mm. That would give me the validation that I was worthy and I was good. And that's how I was living my entire life. So then I got out into the workforce and I found the first thing in life that I was good at. And it was this hospitality sales vertical. And I'll tell you what, Christy, man, I got my first whiff of achievement and that I was good and I was closing these deals and making these people happy in these big positions. And that groomed me to be addicted to the drug of achievement. And once I got a whiff of that, man, I was on that for 15 years. And it really is like a drug. I can look back now and think, man, I was always looking for the next hit. It was never enough. Man, I would have that email up on my phone, jonesing for the next, what deal am I going to close? Who needs me to fix something? I would always say when I was on PTO, I'm going to be on PTO, but call me if you need me. And I would always take the phone. And what I realized, so 15-year journey in this, and then I got the job that I was after for 10 years. The C-suite job, the corner office, reporting into the president and COO, the face of the company, running sales for this billion-dollar hospitality organization. And I had this, I can only think of it now like you hear people talk about these divine universal moments where the universe basically slaps you upside the head and is like, dummy, pay attention. And I had this moment as I'm about to sign the offer letter that says, like, how are you living your life? I was $20,000 in debt because I thought the handbag, the thing, the latest, trendiest clothes would fulfill me. Never did. I was in a loveless relationship. I was binge drinking because I hated the silence and I was cut off from the rest of the world. I cut myself off from my tribe because I did not want to hear how great their life was while I was barely hanging on. So I lived my life in mask mode for that entire journey. And if I'm being honest with myself, probably even before that,
Yeah.
always lived my life in mask mode. I'm good. It's good. We're good.
You know, the interesting thing about what you just said, I mean, you said a lot of things, and oh my gosh, like in my soul, I'm like picturing moments in my life. I'm like, been there. Yep. That resonates. I feel you. Yes. But the one thing that you just said that stands out is that you didn't want to partake in anybody else's whatever they were accomplishing, whatever it was that they were succeeding at, because you didn't want to feel like you were failing in your life. But the interesting thing about that is that I bet everybody else surrounded, all the people that were surrounding you were looking at you. You were the one that had all your crap together. You were the one that was successful. You were the one that they were holding themselves up to and saying, I'm a failure because I'm not that. And you're saying, I don't want to see what anybody else is doing because I don't want to feel like a failure. It's a horrible, vicious cycle that we have like created in our generation that is, well, if somebody else looks happy, it must mean X, Y, Z about me.
Oh, yeah. Then we make up these stories in our mind that we completely believe to be true. And there hasn't been any factual information to validate this, but you believe it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's really interesting. It's like, you know, when we're children, we think that these adults in our lives have all their crap together. And so we're like, yeah, they have all the answers. They know everything, obviously. And then we get to be adults and we're like, whoa, I don't have all my crap together. But for some reason, we don't go back to our childhood self and say, hey, psst, what that adult said about you or what that person did to you or how that person acted towards you, they didn't have their all crap together. It wasn't true. It wasn't right. You can let go of all of those stories and insecurities and ideas that you created and be a new you now.
I love that. I love that. And Christy, what you talked about hiding behind a mask, right? I loved that because I will tell you, I knew people in my corporate career for 15 plus years, and I would work with them every day, and I didn't know anything about them.
Right.
All I knew is I would go to you if I needed X. I'd go to Bob if I needed accounting support. I'd go here if I needed operations support. But I never took the time to really get to know who you were. And I always told myself, back to your point on the stories we tell ourselves, that I'm busy. Man, I'm busy. I'm busy. I got calls back to back. Let's just do this task and get it done. Well, if I would have taken, and now I can see this through this 7-year journey, right? As I started to feel better about myself, my conversations with others changed. And I started to allow myself to be more vulnerable and let my mask down. And when I shared with people, now listen, you don't have to come out of the gate sharing your deepest, darkest secrets with the neighbor,
Right.
but your most trusted tribe, those that you feel comfortable sharing with, just slowly, incrementally, brick by brick, start to share what you're struggling with, whether it be a work email or whether it be a conversation with your partner or your child or whatever that looks like. And it's amazing the vulnerability that they will share and how you start to build your relationships that are true and real and not based on the facade.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The thing that you said in all of that, you talked about I'm busy, I'm so busy. I years ago, gosh, probably 12 years ago, I had hired a life coach. I was actually I was doing web development work at that time, and she needed website stuff. And so I was like, let's trade. So she was helping me kind of get out of my head, out of that place of like holding everything in, right? Because I'm really good at that. Not having those honest conversations because I don't trust a lot of people. And so, or I didn't trust a lot of people. And so it was hard for me to have those open conversations with people, even with my husband at that time. And one of the things that she helped me uncover is like this badge that people wear that says, I'm busy on it. You know, when you go talk to people and you're like, how are you doing? And their response has nothing to do with their health, their mindset, well-being, anything, their response is, I'm so busy. Like, what kind of answer is that? And it was
Mhm.
me like that. I was wearing that badge of honor. I'm busy. And it was interesting to me to find, she was like, what is it that is triggering this the most for you? Like, because I was that person too. Like when you were talking about having your cell phone on vacation and like waiting for that next email to come through and who can I help and what can I do and what am I going to sell and all of this stuff, that was totally me at that point. And I said, I think that one of the biggest triggers for me is having notifications on my computer and on my phone
Mm.
notifying me that I have an email. Because I
Mm.
would jump from task to task to task and I would answer that email. And I always had clients who were like, oh my gosh, you're so fast at answering. I just really appreciate the quick turnaround. And, all of that's like, I was known to have a fast response. But what
Mhm.
that was doing inside of my head and to my relationships with the people that I loved the most was devastating. So I want to know for you, like that was one thing I can give to people, like turn off your dumb notifications. You don't need to know when so-and-so commented on Instagram or when somebody posted up a new video or when you have a new email or what fire you need to be putting out. Like I have my phone on do not disturb all the time. And the only people that can ring through or text through are my kids and my husband.
Mm. Do
And
you
I will
feel
get
like
to everything else when I'm ready.
was that difficult? Or was it
Yes.
pretty? Yeah, yeah.
No, it was hard. It was, I mean, that was my identity. I was busy. I was purposeful. People needed me. So when it was like that shut off moment, it was like, okay, deep breaths. I'm doing this for a reason. And I could see, I think that the only thing that made it easy is that I knew it was for my benefit. And I
Mm.
knew it was going to get me where I wanted to be in my mind, in my like anxiety level in myself, and also in my relationships. So
Mm.
what for you, because that was obviously something that you've dealt with, and it doesn't have to be the same like example of just like pulling out of that, but like what is a moment in time or a thing that you were like, I have to stop doing this in order to get what I really want?
Well, most recently, and listen, I've been on this journey for 7 years, so I want everyone to know it's easy or may seem easy for Christy
Right.
and I to be sharing this with you now. But listen, it's a journey. It's always a journey. So most recently for me, Christy, as you're talking, the thing that popped into my head was I really struggled over COVID with shutting it down.
Mm,
Like I did not know how to end my day. So while I felt like I had the foundation in for the morning, and I think we give a lot of hype in this space of wellness around setting your morning routines, but I felt like at night it was hard. So what I did, yeah, talk about setting yourself up not for success. I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to set my phone on the what do you call it, like the screen timer, and it shuts everything off on your phone. I'm going to do that at 8 o'clock, and at every night at 8 o'clock, I am going to shut off the world, and I'm going to be with my husband, and it's going to be great. Well, what do you think happened? I ignored all of it. I'd be like, no, ignore, turn the phone on. And I did this for a couple months and I was like, you know what, Meg, this is not working
working.
for you. So then what I did back days, talk about taking your own advice, micro steps. I was like, okay, well, let me start at 8:45. Maybe 8:45, I'll shut everything down. And let me try that for a week. And then the next week, I was like, okay, I can do that. 8:30, I'll shut everything down. And whatever works for you, but it was setting up my phone to shut things off at a time, and it was an awareness for me to be like, okay, I need to be present with my family and allow myself the decompression night time at night that I do in the morning.
Yes. I really loved what you said that there's so much emphasis put on how we wake up in the morning,
Mhm.
and nobody ever talks about how we go to bed at night.
Yes. I was reading this thing. Now I'm gonna jack it up. But the stat was basically about how, listen, we know going to sleep with our phones are horrible for us because of the blue light, because of your thoughts. Anyway, there was this great study, and now I'm going to jack it all up, but there was this great study that talked about the power of sleep that you have if you put your phone in the bathroom 1 hour before you go to bed. 1 hour before you go to bed, put the phone in the bathroom. And not only do you sleep better, you then are forced to get up when the alarm rings, take
Right.
away the temptation for the snooze because the phone's in the bathroom. So I would tell your audience investing in a $20 phone charger is one of the best investments you can take in going to bed, taking the time for you when you shut down at night and for waking up in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know that that's true. And I think that for people who have a really hard time regulating that, that is a really good first baby step to implement into their lives, because it is really invaluable to let your mind shut down. You know, it's funny because it's like, what did we do before cell phones were invented? Like, how did we go to bed and how did we get up? Like when we didn't have social media staring us in the face, you know, like what was that? You know, a lot of times people would just get up and they would start their day. And at nighttime, they might read before they go to bed, you know, like, I don't know. I
I
think
read
there's a lot
this
of value in going back to that.
to your point about what we did before cell phones. I read this study the other day and it was mind blowing to me. 3 minutes, 3 minutes is all it takes in the morning or at night, whenever 3 minutes of reading the news, waking up and going right to the email, waking up and checking social feeds. 3 minutes is all it takes to have a 70% higher chance of having a bad day.
I believe it without a doubt, no question. You are a product of your environment. And we always correlate that to, you know, oh, well, that's the people that we're around. That's the people we spend the most time with. You're like the 5 people you spend the
Mhm.
most time with, you know, like that's been talked about forever. But people don't ever stop to think, oh, well, if I get on social media, that's the 5 people I'm actually spending my most time with is Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and whatever, TikTok, or it, like that's who you're spending your time with. That's what's going into your head. And if you're not waking up with purpose and intentionality, then it's just like all over. It's you are letting your day lead you instead of you leading the
Mm,
day.
mhm,
True.
mhm.
Okay, so you had talked about when we had talked before, we had had a conversation before, and just recently you talked about micro steps. And I love
Yeah.
that idea of doing micro steps because, like you said, it is a journey. And anybody that thinks they're going to get to the 10th rung on the ladder without the first nine, like, let's get real, because that is not how life works. That is not how growth works. That is not how success works. That is not how relationships work. You have to take it one rung at a time, which is really just like a micro step at a time. It can definitely feel like you're moving so slow, you're almost moving backwards, but progress is progress. And 1% can change the course of your whole life.
Mm,
So what
mhm.
is it that we had talked before about micro steps that can help you focus on what it is that you're really wanting out of your life? So
Mhm.
you talked about this journey of being like this like incredible sales lady, and you were just like blowing life out of the water, only to find that on the inside there was like this behemoth sized void that you were
Mhm.
trying to ignore, and then one day it like hit you upside the head. Well, how do you, if you don't want to end up in that place, how do you find intention? How do you find that focus? What are the things, those micro steps that you do to make sure you're staying on the path that you actually want to be on?
Great question. Great question. And I love that because I love gifting this beautiful community that you have here, Christy, and are building tangible micro steps, because that's the thing, right? Like when our problems are big, we think the solutions must be big, right?
Wisdom.
Right. So we don't know where to go because, to your point, we're tired, we're exhausted, we're busy. I'm busy. I don't have time. So you keep going down the lane you know you shouldn't go down. But how can you fix that one micro step at a time? So there's 3 micro steps I want to share with this beautiful community. The first one is making time for you. Making time for you is huge. And I don't want anyone to discount the smallness of these, because it really is the smallest things that we know we should do, that we don't do, that can make the biggest impact in our habits and our behavior. And that lays the foundation for the trajectory of your life. So making time for you, what does that mean? I don't mean going to get the massage or the nails done or what the world tells us self-care is. What I mean is getting up when that alarm rings. That's the promise you made to yourself the night before. So wake up with the first promise you made to yourself. Move your body. 20 minutes. Science has shown that 20 minutes of just moving your body. And listen, it doesn't need to be a Peloton workout or a Barry's boot camp where you think you're going to fall off the treadmill and hurt yourself. It can be just going out for a walk, lacing up the sneakers, going out for a walk in your neighborhood, 20 minutes, because science has shown that it'll help you break through the biggest barrier that we have, the demon that lives in our mind. And then the third thing, and within your making time for you, that you can do, and I have this up on my website. I would love your listeners to download it. It's the 4-step journal process that I have used every day for the past 7 years. And it's just on megan-miller.com, megan-miller.com. And what I do 5 minutes in the morning is a great place to start. Pen to paper, use that process. And I do 2 things in that process. I ask myself, what is one act of kindness I can do for someone else? Because science has shown that that gives us the same dopamine hit that we were getting from the emails. So and it'll help your relationships. It could be something as simple as dropping that colleague a note and saying, hey, you killed it this week. It could be texting that girlfriend that you haven't spoken to in years and saying, hey, I'm just thinking of you.
Mm-hmm.
It could be writing your partner a love note in the morning on their bedside table that says, I love you. It can be something so small that takes just 1 minute out of your day that has a huge difference in how you show up. And then the second thing is, what is one thing I can do that'll make me happy? And then I do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that leads me to my second key, which is keeping that promise to you. So in that morning, when you were journaling, when you told yourself that you wanted to do X for yourself, that can be sitting outside 10 minutes with a book, reading it off the screen. That could be taking the photography class at 4:30 on a Tuesday when your kids have baseball practice, but you want to take the photography class. So you do it, right? Like you don't make up these excuses of pushing yourself on the back burner. I was notorious for that. I would put things in my calendar for me. It could be going to the DMV for a new license, and I would cancel it 98% of the time because someone needed something from me.
Yep.
So you make time for you, key 1. Key 2 is you keep that promise to yourself. And then key 3, you do that consistently. Repetition is the mother of all skill.
Amen.
Right? We think that it is, we want the package we want and we want it now. So we, want to pop the pill. Listen, I took every diet pill there was in the world. I bought Ab Blaster. I took a course on how to make men crave you, all of it. And what was on the other end of that was I didn't lose any weight. I didn't have any abs, and I was still single because I wanted the quick, easy fix.
Right.
When it's not about that, it's these little micro steps that you just do consistently that'll have you showing up differently in life, and what you look for, you find.
Oof. Good job. That was amazing. I love it. I was over here just furiously taking notes, which is so funny. I find myself doing this and I'm like, I'm literally recording this.
Oh my God. We
here's
are the same
though.
person.
Here's the thing though, about writing things down. And this goes back to the very first point you were making about what you do to relax is journaling. There is something about getting it into your ear and out through a pen onto a piece of paper so your eyeballs can see it. You're hearing it, you're seeing it, you're experiencing it as you're writing it. There's magic in that. That's like a whole podcast episode.
I have to tell you. So as you're talking, I literally went into my work bag and pulled this out, my notepad. So I get these little, as you're talking about the power of writing, it has become my therapy. Yeah. Whenever I start to feel uncomfortable, whenever that demon in my mind starts to tell me that I suck, this sucks, nobody wants to hear what I have to say, Why'd I mess that up? I can never do anything right. I run to this. I run to pen and I run to paper and I just allow myself to just free write. And then I find, and I still do this, and this sounds hokey, but I would say, listen, try it. We have a difficult time talking to ourselves because we're never taught how to do that.
Yeah.
So, what I found is when I'm writing all these things down, I'm actually having like the dialogue in my head, like I would talk to my best friend, because we will do more for others than we ever would for ourselves.
Yep. It's true. It's true. That's actually a strategy for people who are writing a book. They always, they tell you, you need to come up with a one person that you're actually writing the book to.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. So if you can do it from a point of view where I'm doing this to help somebody else, it like ideas flow. But when you're like, okay, what do I want to talk about this topic? It's like, I don't know. That's where writer's block comes in. But
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, it is really interesting. There is. And okay, so I'm just going to recap. 1, make time for you. 2, keep your promises to yourself, which, oh my gosh, that is another podcast episode all in itself. And 3 is doing it consistently and recognizing that this is a journey. There is progress. This isn't an immediate gratification, which I know we live in that world in a lot of ways, but that's not what life actually is. That 1%, I mean, if you imagine, if you can put yourself in a plane and you're on your way to your destination, right? From the very beginning, your compass is 1% off course. How far do you think you're going to get off course by the time you actually are supposed to get to your destination? You're like light years off course, because that one little thing is taking you totally in a different direction than where you're supposed to be going, which, if we correlate that in a positive thing, this is the path that you're on, which is like to destruction. 1 little percent is going to get you in a totally radically different location. So it's all about 1% every day. If your focus is just being 1% better than you were yesterday, honoring yourself 1% more, telling yourself something nice one more time than you did yesterday, it will over time magnify into something magnanimous in your life, and you will get to become the person you want to be, and you will get to live the life that you want to live, which is proof in you, in what you're doing right now.
You had me at I can't even say it, magnanimous.
Magnanimous.
I was like, ooh, mic drop, Christy. Yes.
No, I love it. And it's true. I mean, if you, Megan, have been able to have this amazing career and be able to achieve all of these things that the world would say, wow, you've arrived, well done, only to realize that you're like, I hate this life.
Yes. Yes.
And to start making those micro steps that you talked about day after day after day after day, that is why you are now where you are. And the thing I love most about this whole journey is that you're at a place in your life now that you're like, I want to help other people. I'm going to turn back around and I'm going to help other people struggling, so that it doesn't have to be a 7-year journey for them. It could literally be 7 months. Like they could like literally change their life this year if I can just download all the things I gained along the way and all the things I learned. And I love that about you. I love that you've stopped and recognized, I don't want this to just be about me.
Yes.
I want this to be about my community. I want this to be about other people. That girl who used to be so locked up inside of herself, not about community, only about putting out the fires, only about the sales, only about the money, only about the achievement, can stop and transform yourself into somebody radically different, which gives living proof that anybody else can do it.
Oh God, yes. Yes, which is why I said, hey, listen, I was a C+ student, speech impediment, very humble beginnings. And if I can do this, anybody can. And Christy, if I can expand on that, as you're talking about this journey and helping other women, which I am all about, as we talked about, there's so much power in sharing your story. And you're doing that here, a place where women are sharing their journey, their story, their truth, and allowing a safe place to put your mask down. So I didn't even, isn't it funny how sometimes you do things and you're like, God, that wasn't even strategic, but it all worked out.
Yes.
So throughout this journey, as I started to think back to the little girl I was growing up, and never really knowing my place in the world, and just so desperate for approval from the outside world, I sat down, and I know this sounds hokey, but it was so cathartic. I sat down and I wrote myself a note as the me today to the younger me.
Hmm,
And oh my, it got me so emotional.
I'm sure.
And I was like, I would just love to share with you that life is even better than you could have ever imagined when you had the courage to live your truth, and you don't need to go through it alone. And I would love to give that same story that I told my younger self to this beautiful community that you've built, Hill Christie, is twofold. One, you're not in this alone. You are not. And two, what is on the other side of this is even better and bigger and brighter than you could ever imagine.
Whew, excellent ending point. And it's true. And that's why we do what we do, right? So that we can help people see that your life, life, I tell people life wasn't necessarily meant to be easy, but it's not
Mm.
meant to be miserable. It's
Yes.
supposed to be about a journey. It's supposed to be about growth, and growth oftentimes comes through the trials.
I love that. I love that. And you are doing so much good in the world too, my friend. I applaud you. Here's to new friendships.
Right? This has been such a great episode. I'm like, yeah, we're going to do 20 to 30 minutes. Yeah. Well, we're a little bit over that.
I was gonna say how we could make this 24-hour
No,
party
I was
hotline.
thinking that. I'm like, dude, I think we should have a podcast together, actually. It's so fun. I've just so enjoyed talking to you today. I love the notes, love the conversation, the energy. I hope that the listeners have really been able to get some insights and to be able to put themselves at points along the timeline to be able to say, okay, well, yep, I identify that's where I'm at right now. And there's hope that I can change my life. And that's what I want people to take away from this, is that there's hope. You can change your life. You can make it different. So Megan, thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on this show and sharing your wisdom and yourself and your story with all of our listeners.
It was so great to be here. I love you, and I love this beautiful community. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, we will catch up with you later.
Okay, bye now.
All right, bye.